the victory. In other words, Rachel given noch in Bob Mistame. The Alter Rebbe's father's mother was Rachel. Alter Rebbe had a daughter, Rachel, also. Alter Rebbe had three daughters. The third daughter was Rachel. Baruch's mother was Rachel. Shnei Zalman and Rachel, yeah. But the word Menucha, Mensuga, like because of us. But the Maisa was because of the Yitas Kislev, because of the Dam Natzach. Menucha. Menucha, yeah. The Tzemach Tzedek wanted her to go live in Eretz Yisrael. Tzemach Tzedek wanted to make a yishuv, and she wanted that she should go with, of course, her husband, who's called him Yankov Kuli. I don't know what Yankov Kuli. His name was Slanim, but yeah, he's called Yaakov Kuli, which is a Svadish name. And it was Tafresh Yudalef Mistame. The 1850s. And she said to the Tzemach Tzedek, Shvager, ich hab meire. I'm afraid to travel because I'm afraid of lightning. Doing it and blitzing, and when you travel, especially when you travel in the ocean, there could be thunder and lightning. So the Tzemach Tzedek told her, "Nu vet of din nit regenen." Wow. So it will not rain. It didn't rain on her. Her whole life, wherever she went.
She never needed an umbrella.
She never needed an umbrella, right?
Now,
she lived in Eretz Yisrael.
Well, she's better than Chevron, so...
Yeah, tough reish mamches. She passed away. She's
She moved to Eretz Yisrael?
She moved to Eretz Yisrael probably in her 50s. In her late, yeah. And she lived there for probably another 35 years, yeah. Okay, anyway, listen. I gave you a Rambam. This is paid exam, Vilchas Yisurim Mizbeach. There are so many extraordinary diyukim of the Rebbe in this Sikha. You know, in a different universe, what I would do was I would teach Pei Hey first. I would take out Pei Hey from the Sikha and teach it first. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm a pile going in order. But in another universe, I should teach Pei Hey. Because in Pei Hey, the Rebbe is Machadish, a Chiddush. I mean, obviously it's based on Rambams, it's based on Gemaris. And the Mistama, other people speak about it as well, but the Rebbe brings out a very unusual point in this Perek, which I'm going to get to momentarily. But one of the most important ideas that comes out of the Sikha is that the Sikha is an Hilchas Isurei Mizbeach. Okay. On which Sefer in the Rambam it is. Hilchas Isurei Mizbeach. What is Hilchas Isurei Mizbeach? The laws of what you're not allowed to put on the Mizbeach, right? So how does Rambam go? The first thing is you have Beis Abchira. Then you have Klei HaMikdash. Then you have, what's the next one? The third one? What's the Klei HaMikdash? Could be Bias HaMikdash. Huh?
Something behind him by.
Bias HaMikdash. And the fourth is Yisurim Mizbeach. So when you learn Rambam, so Beis Abchira is about building the Beis HaMikdash. Klei HaMikdash has to do with the Keteiras, Nisham and HaMishcha, and the big Leviim, and the Kainim, and the big Dekona. Bias HaMikdash and Yisurim Mizbeach, I always looked at it as the S and the Leisase, you know. All the positive things by coming into the Beis HaMikdash, and Yisurim, all the negative things. And then comes Ma'aseh Karbonos, and then Tmidim Musafin, right? The Rebbe says that's not the word. The difference between Bias HaMikdash and Yisurim Mizbeach is not whether it's a positive or a negative, it's whether it's Beis HaMikdash or Mizbeach. Bias HaMikdash is about the Beis HaMikdash. Yisurim Mizbeach is about Mizbeach. And that's a kvetch in this Sikha, which is going to repeat itself again and again and again. So even though in Halachas it's called Yisurim Mizbeach, it's not only about Yisurim Mizbeach. They puts Yisuri in Segrai. It's really Hilchas Mizbeach. The Rambam calls it Yisurim Mizbeach, but it means Yisurim Mizbeach, Umotarim Mizbeach, V'chayuvim Mizbeach, V'hidim Mizbeach. It's about the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach more than the Beis HaMikdash. In other words, halacha before it's Bias HaMikdash. This is about Mizbeach, not just the shlila, what you're not allowed to do about doing against Mizbeach, but the positive. Because
the Rebbe is not able to look at the Mizbeach in the negative.
Okay. That's a closed dika gedank. But this is a more of a midat alom disha gedank. What the Rebbe is going to do in the Sikh is as follows. We all know about Gavra and Chefza. Everybody knows about Gavra and Chefza. Right? That when it comes to Yiddishkeit, there's a part of Yiddishkeit which has to do with the person, and there's a part of Yiddishkeit which has to do with the item, which to say it correctly, also with the item. Not just with the person, also with the item. One of the nafkaminis that's brought in a lot of Sfarim is that the Eraises are Chefze and the Rabbanans are Gav. Meaning, when you're doing mitzvah the Eraise, the mitzvah extends not just to you, but to the item also. In other words, Chefze doesn't mean as opposed to Gavra. Chefze means in addition to Gavra. So the Rabbanans are on you. So Machon, we talk about something which is not kosher min ha-Torah. We don't only say that the treifus is for you, the item is treif. Machon can something that it's mutter. And with the Rabbanon, it's also, the item isn't treif. It's treif for you. And there's nafkaminas, all kinds of nafkaminas in halacha, and nafkaminas, of course, in the Pnimiyus ha-Torah. But this is a classic idea, the difference between Gavra and Chefza. And again, the way I understand it,
Arla is the actual chefza.
Fine. Ein nachinami, right? Because it's a deraisa, but the Alter Rebbe brings in again Perek Lamed Zayin, deraisa the Rabbanon. So that's a whole lumdus. It's a diuk. But this is classic, okay? That maybe the difference between before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah is only Gavra, after Matan Torah is Chefza. So there's a lot of scenarios where there's differences between Gavra and Chefza. Okay, Gavra and Chefza. In the Sikhe, the Rebbe is going to make two Gedolim in Chefza. Okay, I want you to accept. I'm not a Lamdan at all, but I'm certainly not enough of a Lamdan to know this with a certitude, okay? But we're going to assume that every Chefza is also a Gavra. When the Torah gives you a mitzvah, and the mitzvah is not just on you, it's on the item, of course it's on you. You're doing the mitzvah, you're elevating yourself, and you're also elevating the item. Every Chefza, in other words, Gavra is less than Chefza. It's not either or. Chefza is Chefza plus Gavra. Masha'en kein. Gavra is Gavra to the exclusion of Chefza. I gave you the example of something which also for Achila, Mederaisa, Mederabona. The Rebbe is going to now give two Gedolim in Chefza. One Gedol in Chefza is that when you do a mitzvah, you're not only elevating yourself, you're elevating the item. But the elevation of the item is about you. That you're the one doing the elevating. You're elevating the item. And the other Gedol is that when you're elevating the item, it's about the item itself. It's about the thing. In other words, Chefza is not just a more complete version of Gavra. Mitzvahs are done by people, not by things. Some mitzvahs, you do the mitzvah. Of course, you're using an item, but the item is not the mitzvah. The item mitzvah is you. That's called Gavra, yeah? Other mitzvahs, the mitzvah extends not just to you, but to the item as well. But the item is a mitzvah because you're doing it. And it's to get to you. But then there's an idea where a person takes an item, it makes it into a mitzvah, and the end game, the net game is not that the Chefza is a mitzvah because it's connected to a Gavra. The Chefza is a mitzvah by itself. And there's only one example for that. And that's Karbanis. But not when you makdish the Karban, not when you make the Karban holy. When you make the Karban holy, it belongs to you. Not when you prepare the Karban, not when you go through the process, when you put it on the Mizbeach. And that's the Ged of Hilchas Isuri Mizbeach. And then we put the word Isuri in Segrai. When it comes, it's in Chefza Gufa, Gavra Sheva Chefza, and Chefza Sheva Chefza. The first get that is that this mitzvah makes a physical thing holy, but the making the physical thing holy is for me. It's part of my avodah. The other get that is that you're making a physical thing holy, and the purpose of making the physical thing holy is for the physical thing. It stops being about you. And there's only one example. And the one example is Karbanis, and it's not, the preparation stages is not enough. When you're preparing, when you're makdish a Karban, it's still Chefza Sheba Gavra. It's still related to you. It's your Chefza. When you actually put it on the Mizbeach, and it's no longer yours, it becomes Eibishter's, and you get nothing from it. That's, so to speak, Chefza Sheba Chefza. And the Rebbe is going to say that Hilchas Isuri Mizbeach, philosophically, is focusing on the word Mizbeach, because it's speaking about the concept of a Karban, which is not only chefza in a way that's sort of mashed the person, it's chefza that's unique to karbonis. It's unique to karbonis. Okay, you're listening? You're hearing?
So like a contrast to tefillin?
Yeah, in contrast to tefillin. The tefillin are yours. They belong to you. The mezuzah belongs to you. When you finish with tefillin, the tefillin belong to you. When you give a carbon to Eibishter, he doesn't belong to you anymore, it belongs to Mizbeach. And it's not just ownership. It's the echos of the mitzvah. What is the mitzvah? Here the mitzvah is I have to make myself holy by doing these acts. I have to make this thing holy by doing the act with these things. But these things complete me in my holiness. And then I have to make these things holy. It's only about the holiness itself.
You fulfill the mitzvah sukkah. How's that yours? You did the sukkah.
The sukkah belongs to me. It belongs to me. And I sit in the sukkah. And I make the sukkah beautiful. I make the sukkah beautiful. I make the sukkah beautiful for the Eibishter, but I make the sukkah beautiful. I make the sukkah beautiful. I make the sukkah beautiful for the Eibishter, but I make the sukkah for the Eibishter because I have a mitzvah of doing mitzvahs beautifully.
It's still you.
Yeah, it's still me. The only other example, besides for Kabbalas, of a mitzvah, where it's called Chefze Shebechefze, where you're taking a physical thing and you're making it holy. But you're making it holy not because it's Vashlam you, you're making it holy. You need Chelik Chav Zayin. We're out of copies. Chelik Chav Zayin. I made only 10 copies. Oh, there's not even 10 people here. There's extra copies of Sikh at someplace. Does anybody see copies? Maybe someone has 2 or something. The Moshe.
10 people here.
But I made 10 copies. And he has a sefer already.
He's alive.
There's an extra, anyway, whatever it is. The only other example, these are my words, of chefze shebechefze, when you make the item holy, and the holiness is not in relationship with you, it's holy about the item, is kapara. A mitzvah that you do to be mechaper on you. Because when you're doing a mitzvah mechaper on you, it's like karbonas, you're giving it away. And the cloud for this is, if never brings a rugged shover, is tzedakah. When it comes to tzedakah, the ikir is the oni. It's not you. So tzedakah is a mitzvah that has the mile of kapara. It atones for me. And because tzedakah is a mitzvah that has the mile of kapara, when I give clothing to a person who's undressed, or food to a person who's hungry, that goes into this sort of deeper category, which is represented by the word mizbeach. To me, the deepest nakud in this sikha is the word hilchas isurei segrayim mizbeach. It's hilchas mizbeach. It's the halachas in the Beis Hamikdash. They're not about the Beis Hamikdash. They're not about people coming to serve the Eibishter. It's about sacrifice. When you give away to the Eibishter, it's not yours anymore. It's about the Eibishter. And the other dogma for mizbeach is helping a poor person. This is stuck. Okay, that's the sikh. Okay, now, one of the interesting things about the sikh is there's no havaminis. The Rebbe doesn't say something and slug it up and say something else. You know, every svara that he uses from the first page he keeps, which means he can't skip anything. It's 8 pages. But the ganze. No, the Rebbe doesn't say Efshika was Azay, but you can't say like this. And here's the reason that was Andish. So whenever we have such sikhs, I get through those few pages in a few minutes. There is not one svara that Rebbe raises in the sikha that he later says, no, it's wrong, and changes. He simply develops the svara more and more and more throughout the sikha. And there isn't even a chassidus at the end. The sikha, there's no rachmanis. Till the last lines, the Rebbe is studying this Rambam. It's 8 pages. So I need you to look in the Rambam. I gave you a Rambam. Moshe, I gave you a Rambam. Yeah, you have it. Now the Maisa say, the emes is, we should have also brought in a halacha in the Rambam in Perek Beis. The preparation took a long time. And I would push it. I couldn't make you wait. I pushed. I didn't have might have. Where is it? Yeah, the first is halacha, Perek Beis halacha ches. In a different universe, I would have copied also Perek Beis halacha ches. I push it. I couldn't waste any more time. This is Perek Zayin. The ganze Perek Zayin. Okay, we're going to learn the first halacha, and then we're going to learn what's called ches, tes, yud, and yud aleph. I mean, the numbers are various. Yes, we're going to learn. We're not going to kratz. Okay, we're going to learn it. And there's ha'aras in the sikha, Reuven, especially ha'ara 20, which is wow. 20 and then also 27, but 20 is unbelievable. I don't have time to go into it, but in other 20, the Rebbe brings out the echus that he's trying to develop in the Sikh in extremely edel ways. So this is the last paragraph of the Mizbech, okay? The Rambam discussed earlier that some things are possible in Mizbech, right? For example, a balmum is possible in Mizbech. An animal, which is a mum, is possible in Mizbech. There's a lot of the possible in Mizbech. You're not allowed to bring wine that has this problem, and flour that has this problem, and oil that has another problem. The Rambam goes through all the things that are not good for Mizbech, because the Mizbech deserves the best, right? And then the Rambam starts paid exam as follows. Lei kol davar she'enei posel. Not even everything which is not posel, meviyeh meis lachatchila. In other words, there are many things which are kosher for the Mizbech, but you shouldn't bring them anyway. Keitzad, what does this mean? Hoya chayev elim, chayev karbanei. The Yava yiseh kochash v'kar, do not bring a sheep which is weak and ugly. V'yeman, he could say arei ein bei mum, it doesn't have a mum. And the halacha would be, by the way, if you brought it, the carbon is kosher, and you're makayim yechiyah. If you made a neder, you don't have to bring another neder. But it's loy kol davar she'enei posel, meviyeh meitzah lachatchila. V'al zeh nemer, and this says v'order neichal. Elakol sheyavi lekarbon, everything you bring from the carbon yavim and amuvcha you should bring from the best. Okay. Now you'll see that the Rebbe's medayik and the l'shenis. Over here the lashon is min amuvcha. And the end of the perek the lashon is min hayafe. Muvcha means the best and yafa means the prettiest. The difference between min amuvcha and min hayafe is going to be the difference that I told you. That chefze shebegavre. Mitzad you have to bring min amuvcha. Chavta shebechafta, but you're giving away from the Eibishter, and it's not about you at all. So what the Eibishter, this is more min amuvcha. This is min hayafa. Okay. Now go to the bottom of the page. Tisha minim b'shemen. There are 9 types of oil, because of the different ways that they're made. Ketzat, for example, zayis shegilgel b'reish zayis. The first one is olive from the top of the tree. Bidrei achasachas, you selected them one by one. V'kitchen, you smashed it in a press. And then you put the olives, after you press them with the zetz, into a basket, which you're then going to lose, you're going to put into a mill and grind them to get more oil out of it. The oil that came out from the k'tisha is the first. You take that olive and you put it to the press. The oil that comes from it is the second oil. And after you put it in the press, you ground it. And then you took the mulch, whatever it is, the ground up olives, you put it in the press, that's shlishi. Now, then you have zaysim shemaskam kulum, it's olives, and you didn't select them one by one and look at each olive, you selected a whole bunch of olives. You took them onto a roof. And once you took them onto the roof, you selected. But on the tree you didn't select. And you pressed them the way you did in the first one from Alocha Tehes. And not in the sal put into a sal. Hashemech yatze men revered that olive is the oil is the fourth. You put it into a press. That means a heavy weight. Hashemech yatze men is a chamishi. Chazar v'tachamon. If you then ground it in a mill and then put it back into a press, that's the shishi. Okay. So basically, you have 3 ways of making oil. Number 1, you put it into a stone anvil and give it a zetz. That's number 1. Number 2. You put an incredibly heavy weight on it, a beam on top of it, and you let it sit. So more oil comes out than when you just give it an initial zetz. That's the second level. The third is you grind the olives up into a mulch, and then you put it back into the press. So you have twice 1, 2, 3. The first 1, 2, 3 is when you selected the olives from the top of the tree one by one. And the second is you took all the olives, and then later on, someplace else, you selected olives. Yud Aleph. Zaysim shemesoket. If you harvested olives, and then you let them soak in the house, right? So they should become yilku means to develop a moisture. They start to sort of sweat, even to spoil. Vehelan v'nigvan. Then you, in other words, the olive became softer, right? And then you dried them. And then you pressed them. You put the olives after you pressed them into a basket. Hashemet Yatzash, that's the 7th. Chazav V'tan B'Keid Hashemen U'Ashmini. If you put them into a heavy weight, that's the 8th. Chazav V'tachan V'tan, same thing. You have 3 3 ways of making oil on 3 levels. In other words, the 3 kinds of olives. Each olive can be prepared in 3 ways. Sachakol 9. Number 1, you just give it a zetz in a press. Number 2, you put a heavy weight on it. Number 3, you grind it and put a heavy weight on it. And each one of these 3, you have 3 times. If you take the best olives, if you take all the olives, and if you let the olives actually begin to spoil before you press them. Sachakol, 9 types of shemen. Now let's keep reading. Yud Beis or Tes. Alpha Pi Shekul Channel Menachas. For carbon mincha, all of these 9 are kosher. Harishan ein lamal meno. The first of these 9 is the best. Va'acharav hasheni v'ravi. The second and the fourth are second best. Ushneim shav they're considered equal. Va'achareyem hashlishi v'chamishi v'ashvi. The third and the fifth and the seventh is the third category. Ushloshtem shavin, and they're again equal. V'achareyem, and the last 2 is shishi v'ashmini, the 6th and the 8th. V'shneim again they're equal. L'chil and matamim. Now, listen carefully. Ein kosher lemoneda alarishin urevi ushvi. For the moneda 1, 4, and 7 is all kosher. Why? Because by the moneda it says kosses. Give it a zetz. Whether you selected the olives, or you didn't select the olives, whether you took the olives fresh or you let them soak a little bit, 1, 4, and 7 is kosher for the moneda. You press these olives without using a heavy weight and without grinding them, it's kosher for the moneda. In kosher lemoneda, in a kotosh bavad, what's kosher for the moneda is the olives, that not you let them sit under a weight, but you give them a zetz, which is the finest olive. Aval menachas is kulang ksherim. It says again, for menachas all 9 types are kosher. Frag the Rambam umeyache shekulang ksherim lemenachas. If they're all kosher for menachas.
The fact that the moneda is not looking necessarily at the quality of the shemen.
The method of extraction. As they come takes like the Rambam. Yeah. Umeyache shekulang ksherim lemenachas. If all 9 are kosher for menachas, Lama Nimnu, why list them? Especially since in Halacha Yud Beis, right? 1 is the highest, 2 and 4 is second, 3, 5, and 7 is the third, 6 and 8 is the fourth, and the 9. In other words, the 9 different oils go into 5 madreikis of Eiches. So why are they listed? So the Rambam answers, Kedeileda Yofa. Here's the word Yofa. To know the most beautiful, she'ein l'mayel mimenu, which is nothing higher than it. V'ashava b'pachas, so much less. No, v'ashava, which means, I guess, in the middle. V'apachas, so much lower. Shareitza liskes liyat. Better bring a schus to yourself. Yaakov yitzrei hara, ben yu yetz hara, boisai. Yaakov yitzrei hara means iskafia. Iskafia means a korban. You understand? In other words, just like I told you before, that the only other example of a korban is tzedakah, because it's for kapara. Yaakov yitzrei hara that the Rambam brings here is part of chefta shebechefta. You're giving it away to the Eibishter, so it should be the Eibishter's. The Rebbe is going to bring the Ramban. That when you bring a korban, you're sacrificing yourself to the Eibishter, and it becomes the Eibishter. That's that Yaakov yitzrei hara. V'yarech, if you open up your hand, v'yavi korban, bring your korban min ha'yafa, from the most beautiful, ha'meshubach be'ezid, that's the most precious, shebe'ez yamin, of that type, she'yavi, mimen, of what she's going to bring. And he brings 2 rayas. Raya number 1 is v'hevel gamhu, hevi mebechede seinu mechalbeyan, v'yisha deshem al hevel mechasik. That hevel brought a korban, right? And he taught from bechedes and chalbeyan. And the Eibush that turned to hevel and to his korban. The Rebbe is going to be medayak, not stam a korban mincha. You know what brings a korban mincha? An ani. Vayisha deshem al hevel v'aman chasei. And the Rambam brings all these words. He doesn't just bring the first part of the pasuk. The hevel mevi gamu b'cheres chebetz abein. He says vayisha hevel v'aman chasei. And the halacha tezvav hu adin.
Wait, side note, what happened was from the nicest to the best. He brought something.
The pasuk
I
says.
can't turn to whatever he brought.
No, it says in the chumash.
What?
It says in the chumash.
Where does it say?
V'hevel hevi gamu mebechayros tzaynim mechalbein. The best.
The Choros is the firstborn, right?
And the firstborn is the best, and the chalbein means the fattest.
Yibachar?
I have an older sister, making him chor. V'hu adin l'chol davar shul Hashem ha'il hatev. And the Rambam now generalizes. This is not just a din in karbanas. This is anything which you're doing for the same of the Eibishter. Sheyemin hanoah hatev. You see again the word hanoah from the beautiful, which is good. In Bona based Philly, you build a shul. You know me based Shavasa should be prettier than his own home. Hechel Ra'ev, you give him food to a poor person. Yachel Menateva Amasa shall be going to take from your table the best and the sweetest. Kisa Autumn, you're covering a person who has no clothes. Yechastim and Ayafa Shabbat, you cover him with the prettiest of his clothes. Hiktish Dava, when you make something whole to the Eibishter, Yaktish Man Ayafa Shabbat Nechasov, sanctify from the prettiest of your Nechasim, and it brings another pasuk, Kol Chaylev Lavai. Okay, Chaylev Lavai. So there's two psukim in two halachas, right? And in our Rambam, that's actually the same halacha, right? It's halacha Yud Aleph. The first one is Vehevel Hevi Gamhum Bebechedeh Semech Avishas Mel Bechasei, and the second Chaylev Lavai. Earlier in the Rambam, you have a different pasuk, Mivcha Nidreich. Mivcha Nidreich, and the Rambam brings that pasuk earlier, in the beginning of the Chassid that when you bring a card, Mivcha Nidreich. So there's a difference between the pasuk Mivcha Nidreichem and these two psukim. And as I told you before, the difference is going to be the word, what's the lashon? Min HaMuvchad versus Min HaYafa. And the nafkamin is going to be whether this Min HaMuvchad is still connected to you, or Min HaYafa is given away to the Eibishter, it's entirely the Eibishter. Okay? So that took a long time, but we had to do this Rambam, okay? Now let's learn the Sikh.
See if you take it around, it's Lila Yofish in my menu. The other one says Kedishiyah Minach. No, I tell you, it doesn't use the same Lashon.
Okay, you want to have the Yukim, there's no limit to the Yukim in Rambam, right? Okay. Right. Daf Mefarstei, third paragraph. I just read the Rambam with you. Let's skip it. The whole thing is a quote of a Rambam. The question is, Dem din, bring him in a mufcha. The din, they're free for the choices. Notice, lost him in a mufcha. Hat schon der Rambam gesagt, free in Chil's HaPerek. It's the beginning of the Perek. Quote, Lei kol lovish and apostle baby is Chila, el kol shiyavi yav in a mufcha. Und das lehrt man von einander Pasuk. Der Rambam hat schon früher gebracht in die Halachas, früher, look at footnote 8. Perek Beis Halacha Ches, Mivcha Nidarech, the choicest of your vows. Nidrech. Heint, was is da, die Naya Halach? We already had the beginning of Perek Zayin. And the emphasis, we had it in Perek Beis. The second Perek, parenthesis Isurei, and the parenthesis Mizbeach, that a card must be Mivcha. Was is da, die Naya Halacha? What is the new Halacha at the very end of Rambam? For the Rambam is Meisef Machadash, he adds and introduces a novelty. Welcher werd abgelernt davon, was nimnu, die Dargis und Minim and Shmana, by listing all of these types of Shemen, and saying that they're all kosher, and still you choose the best, is verbunden mit Ratzon HaAdam, hareitza liskes la'atzmei, and it's connected to a person wishing to bring himself as chus. When the break to the nach Rayis, he brings two new proofs. Vehevel hevi gamu, and kol chela va'avaya. He doesn't satisfy himself with the Raya which was brought in Perek Beis, or these same halachas, from the Raya Mivcha Nidrech. So that's the Rebbe's question. And I told you, the 1 mile, this Sikh is you go in a straight line. In other words, not one idea the Rebbe is going to bring up, he's going to refute. He's just going to refine it and refine it and refine it. The Pashas came and Lenin, asked him a from Mufcha by Kabbalah, perhaps the Pshat is that when it comes to choices, there's levels in choices. Right? He says, Mashma in Rambam Gufa, as it's implicit from the Rambam, and the Rambam is going to, the Rebbe is going to bring now 3 Gedarim. The first Gedar is no good. It says, da the Nidrik Esug Mufcher, there's the lowest level of choice, welchem muzayin in our carbon, which must be in our carbon. On them is es osel mizbeach, without that is osel. Okay, look at the last paragraph, page 8. Al derech with the Rambam zogt in Perek Beis. The Rambam says in Perek Beis that he lists all the mumim of behemoths. Then he says, Abba Chaliyah Macherim. There are 4 other illnesses. Misha be'levin eni abel she'ein beiser. They're not mumim. They're not mumim. Right? There's a certain number of mumim. And mumim are also b'deiraisa. Then there are things which are not mumim, they're simply illnesses, chaloyim, sicknesses. It's not a mum which makes the animal possible, but it's a chayli. Im nimtza echad mehem bebehema, if an animal one of these illnesses, even though it's not considered a mum, ein makiv neis, it's possible. It's possible even with the yevid. It's not the choices, and he brings the pasuk mivcha nederech, or nederechem, as the Rebbe says in near footnote 9. Okay? So the first gather is, it's not a mum is possible mizbeach. but it's not mivchan adreich. If it's not min ha-mufchar at the basic level, even if it's not a mum, it's pasal l'mizbech. That's level number 1. Top of page 9. L'mayla mizeh is da sug mufchar. There is a level, a category of chosen, was this nid bleith shelim.
It means possible.
Huh?
Does Ein Makriv means possible in there?
Well, ein makriv is not allowed to be makrivit. And if you're makrivit, you're not yotzeh. It's bringing another carbon. L'mayla mizeh is da a sug mufchar, a higher choice. Was this nid bleith sheil la behema shenimtza ba'einu von the chaloim kreativ. It's not only that this animal is not sick, which is also for the mizbeach. Look at footnote 13. The animal is not sick. He's just small. So it's not at all beautiful and good. So we're not talking about an animal who's sick. We're just talking about an animal that's not healthy, let's put it that way. You shouldn't bring that animal as a carbon in the outset. Even though it's not possible, should you bring lechatchila? Right? Right? Now, but the halacha would be that if you brought it, it would be kosher. Okay, the first category is not good. Second category would be, it would be kosher. Okay, the last line, the first column, top of the second column, our first full paragraph. In addition to the geder of not being sick and not being kochosh v'kor, which puts you into the category of menamufcha, there's a third category. As a rei to list is the atzma, you want to bring schus to yourself. Yaakov yitzerah, bend your yitzerah, v'yalchid yadi, open up your hand. V'yavir karbanim men hayafa. From the most, mivcha is not enough. In other words, mivcha means the animal's healthy. Yafa means it's the most beautiful animal. There's no animal more beautiful than it. Ha-meshubach b'yetz, which is most praiseworthy. Nitplais azavas, nitkochash v'kor, ha-beinani, don't only bring an animal which is not small, or that I feel l'mal mi bein, and that I yafa the best that you can get. Now, and one of the Ikei Chedushim is, he uses different psukim. Und das lernt nicht ab von Mivcha Nedreichem. The Rambam doesn't use the same pasuk. Mivcha Nedreichem is enough to say that if an animal is sick, it's possible. It's enough to say that if an animal is not sick, but it's small and weak, better don't bring it. Okay? Here we're talking about bringing the best. Mivcha Nedreichem does not account for the best, it just accounts for good. No, the fun of us nimnu the mini ashmanim. First of all, from the Torah Shabbal Peh, listings of 9 types of shemen that are all kosher. And even though they're all kosher, you have to know what the 9 are. You know, there's other example like that also, like when you get to tzaras. All the colors are asa metame, but you have to know the colors. And I say right, in a lot of areas in Torah, they're all the same, but you have to know the differences. And then also 2 psukim. Vehevel game who maybe mecheres and chalbein, the second pasuk, and then choloshet, the third pasuk. So the Rambam brings 3 additional ideas that we list the 9 types of shemen, even though they're all kosher, to identify what is the best and encourage you to bring the best. And the pasuk of Hevel and the pasuk of Kol Chel of Avaya, and from them here we learn who adin b'chol dabush l'shem ha'el ha'tev, anything which is the Eibishter which is good, shemen ha'nav ha'tev, the best. Ma she'en kedif mivcha nedreichem was them yuchad in karbonis. Mivcha nedreichem was in karbonis. And the end of that Rambam, the way it's split on this page, there's min ha'yofa but again to karbonis, and min ha'yofa but again to karbonis. You generalize the kol ha'teira, cool. Okay? Go to Gimel, please. Go to Gimel. I'm skipping one Nakuda. Okay. Go to Gimel. The question is, Ribaldas der din in Rambam. So the last halacha in Rambam says that min hamufcha is not enough. You have to bring min hayafa, right? Or we bring 3 rayas for min hayafa by karbonis itself. But after we bring the 3 rayas min hayafa by karbonis itself, we then generalize to speak about all mitzvahs. Fragt der Rebbe gewaltige Kasche. Wie bald as der din in Rambam. Since this din in Rambam is nicht verbunden dafka mit karbonis, when you get to the very end of Rambam, the Rambam adds a new halacha and generalizes that it's not specific karbonis. Nicht wie der din von Mivchan Edrechem was a dafka mit karbonis kral. Mivchan Edrechem was in karbonis, because Mivchan Edrechem has a shlila also. That if the animal is sick, it's possible. And if the animal is not sick, but he's kar v'kachosh, he's not l'chatchila. So Mivchan Edrechem is dargis, a pasuk, which speaks about gdorim in karbones specifically. Yeah? Nor, says adin kloli, by jede zach, welches verbunden mit Havaye, you generalize, when it comes to everything into the Eibishter, it should be the best. Anything which, for the sake of the Eibishter, that it's not only karbones, it's also building the Eibishter a house, it's also giving tzedakah, and it's also making hektish. So the Rabbi has a klotz kasha. We know that the Rambam has a rule that every idea he brings up on the first possible occasion. It should have been in Hilchas Beis Knesses. It should have been Hilchas Matzanim. Why does he leave it in Hilchas Misurim Mizbeach? Yeah. Favos sagt es der Rambam erst da. In Hilchas Misurim Mizbeach. Und nicht früher, first with Matzanim. Right? Skip the parenthesis. In Shulchan Aruch it's brought in Hilchas Sukkah. Or the noch früher in Hilchas Tefillah. If this is a general halacha of the Inyan from Yafeh, it should be brought the first time, which is when you talk about building a shul. Or Hilchas Matzanim, Zrayim is before Avodah. So why is it left for here? So what's going to be the answer? Because only Karbonis, or to say it more specifically, only Mizbeach explains it to you. You understand the kasha? The kasha is, if this is a generalization for Kol HaTeira Kula, say it the first time, and the answer is because you have to have Mizbeach. Now I want to make a Maimer Amuzga clarification. Okay, Veistach, the Welt sagt, and the Rebbe even concedes this to some extent. I mean, we grew up listening to the Rebbe, learned Rambam, right? And the Rebbe was so precise in learning Rambam. The Rebbe made Klali Rashi, and the Rebbe made Klali Rambam. Tuvia Bloy made two svarim, Klali Rashi, based on Siyach and Klali Rambam. The Klali Rambam came out in 2 or 3 years, right away. One of the Klali Rambam is that every halach and Rambam is halachas. Halach, there's no such thing in Rambam and halach. And there's something in Rambam who doesn't look at it, but pounces on it, says, what's it doing here? And he makes it into a halach. Now there is a partial concession that in the Sof of a halacha, especially in the Sof of a sefer, like Hilchas Meila and Hilchas Tmura, the Rambam will bring what's called Deis Nechenes and Midas Tevis, such things, yeah. But as much as it could be a halacha, the Rebbe insists that it's halacha. So the Rebbe holds that this end of Hilchas Misurim Mizbeach, it's not, the last halachas in Hilchas Tefillah is not Beis HaKnesses. It's Bechas Keinim. It's Bechas Keinim. So the last halachas of Matan Saniyim is Taket Stokke. It is Stokke. The last 4 parakim of Matan Saniyim is Stokke. So you could say that the reason it's here and not before is because it's not a din, it's Musar. It's not a din, it's Deis Nechoines. So the Rambam must have put it in the end of halacha. He couldn't have put it over there because he couldn't have find the place, end of halacha or something exciting like that. But the Rebbe is saying, no, it's a halacha. It's another Geder and Hiddur Mitzvah. It's another Geder. By the way, the word Hiddur Mitzvah hasn't yet come up. You'll find out too that Hiddur Mitzvah is part of Mufchad. It's not part of Yafeh. Hiddur Mitzvah, Zeh Kelev Anveyu, is a part of the earlier halacha. It's part of Mufchad. It's part of Chefza Sheba Gavre. It's not Chefza Sheba Chefza, as I told you in my introduction. So if it's a halacha, it belongs to the Beis HaKnesses. In Hilchas Beis HaKnesses, the Rambam should say there's such a thing called Min HaMufchad. Now, Min HaMufchad is a din in Karbonis, but there's such a din in Min HaYafeh. And Min HaYafeh is din in ganz Yiddishkeit. When? If a person wants to be Mizakeh Satzmi, and Yaakov is Yitzri, and do Taka the best, why is it left for Karbonis? And the answer is going to be because only Karbonis can teach it. Only Karbonis can teach it. Because Karbonis have an echos that no Chefts of a mitzvah has. In other words, we're splitting Chefts into 2 dargas. And the higher darga of Chefts is the Chefts of Dafka Mizbeach. The Rambam has no choice. All of these dinim of making a beautiful shul and giving food, the best food to the poor person, the nicest clothes to the poor person, and when you make something hektish, you give Yafish Abenachasov, it's a dinim Mizbeach. And you have to wait for here because until Mizbeach, this Geder of Chefts doesn't exist in Rambam. Let's keep going. Noch mehr. Der Rambam bringt in Hilchas Tefillah Kamadinim in Oifen Bin Beis HaKnesset. Rambam brings other halachas. There has to be the tallest building in the town. Right? So why doesn't Rambam bring in Hilchas Beis HaKnesset Haroitze Liskes La'atzmei Zol Bayin HaBeis Tefillah Be'efen Was Yenomi Beis Yeshivasei Ubehem Shechazar bringen die alle Pratim and the Postuk of Chilul V'Avaya. Why doesn't Rambam in Hilchas Beis HaKnesset, forgive me for putting words into their mouth, he brings Min HaMufchar of Bet HaKnesiyah. So the Beis HaKnesset L'Reim Beis HaLakeim to be the tallest building in the city. V'chuli v'chuli v'chuli. But he doesn't bring this. And the Rebbe says, why not? The next kasha, Rabbi Yisai, is a gewaldige kasha. It's a geoinische kasha. You know what's the kasha? That the Gemara brings different Gemara. When the Gemara wants to talk about Hiddur Mitzvah, it doesn't give the examples that the Rambam gives. Look inside. The Dugmois that the Rambam brings, the examples that Rambam gives, from Kol Davar Shu L'Shema El Ateiv, anything which is for the good God, Shiyim and Hanoah of Ateiv from the previous and the best, is Bona based Tefillah. You build a shul, has to be better than your own home. Hechel Rav, you give food to a poor person. Kisa Aram, you cover the person who's naked. Hiktish Davar, you made something hektish. The Lachayra, the Rebbe effect a klotz kasha, the Gemara zogt. The Gemara gives other examples. There's a chiyuv and a snarl of honor b'mitzvahs. That mitzvahs have to be beautiful. For if it upgeland from them posik, zekeli van vei, we call this hiddur mitzvah. And what are the examples that he brings? Also the fun of sukkah, no, lulav, no, shefa, no, tzitzis, no, sefer Torah, no. Sefer Torah, no. B'dyoy, no, b'kumas, no, b'lavlav, uman, u'v'kecha, b'shoyim, no. Favos bring the Rambam da under the Gemara. The Rambam does not bring one example that the Gemara brings. Now in the footnotes, the Rebbe is medayik that maybe Sefer Torah belongs to both groupings. Maybe Sefer Torah would belong to this no, but not the others. Sefer Torah, the Rebbe is pushing that maybe Sefer Torah has a property which is the kedusha of Sefer Torah itself. But why would the Rambam come up with new examples when the Gemara brings these examples? And what the answer is, because the Gemara is talking about Mufchar. And the Rambam is talking about Yofa. And Yofa is only by Mizbeach. And the examples that the Rambam brings are going to be Mizbeach. And these examples, the lulav is yours. Faket. Yeah, the first day Sukkot. What are you doing in Shul? You're showing off your lulav. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
The esrig. Yeah. V'yashleima habir but the teretzis. V'malad in bashkafari sheino, when you look at it first glance, it comes out as the chilik sufficient dem din. In the Rambam. The difference in Allah and Rambam, besefer is for the Mizbeach. Und the halacha von Mivchan Edregen was Rambam read früher, the difference between Peirik Zayin halacha Aleph and Peirik Zayin halacha Ches and Weiter. Where in Peirik Zayin halacha Aleph he says Mivchan, be choice. And in the end he speaks about Yofe. But steht in them was Mivchan Edregen was a din in the Chefs and Edregen, that the earlier Sukkim halacha is talking about the item. Das negates him guf, kedushas are carbon to the body of the whole to the carbon. Und the Rebbe taught him then the Zayin Kemchis not allowed to be lowly. Next column, please. Second column, page 11. Mash'enke in the din, in Sofach of the sermon page. Now look at the end. Yavi karbonim and yafa meshuba b'yasir. The carbon must be for the prettiest and the best. Is nit king din in the chefza from carbon? It's not a loch in the chefza. No, so din in them gav, it's in the person. So in the Havamina, the Rebbe is suggesting that the item has to be good is the beginning. That you want to have a good item is the end. You'll see how it's going to spin. You want to chus for yourself. Yaakov Yitzri Arav Chuli and Ben Yitzhar. And the father therefore is as Eichnit Kein Din Prati by Karbonis. It's not a din in Karbonis, it's in Yiddishkeit. That since Mitat Karbonis, it's enough Kochelev Lavaya. And the only addition in the end of Rambam is you want to do something to be mizaki yourself. So Chel Lavai is in a Karbonis because it's not from Karbonis. But if you talk about Lazaki Sa'atzme, it goes in all of Yiddishkeit. This is perhaps, as the Rebbe, the way we understand the difference between the beginning of Peirik Zayin and later. Okay?
The beginning is only Gavra and the end is
No, the beginning is only Heftzeh, and the end is that after Gava and after Heftzeh, there's something to more Gava. Okay, we have to go straight through. We have no choice. V'yashleimad, as does bavor the Rambam the mitzvah so let it up din from menachos. That the proof of this is from menachos. That all of them are kosher and still one is better than the next. Bring the raya in them betel of a hevel heavy v'gemen. The mid bring the arois. The Rambam wants to bring out as the yavi karbonim and the yafa meshubach b'yesed. They bring the best of a cart mitzvah bunim get from karbonos. It's din in karbonos, but it's a din in karbonos versus negeya. Nit not in ma'isa gavra echem the chefse shal hakol. It's negeya not just to the gavra but also the chefse of the karb. In other words, how do I say this? In the paragraph before, he wanted to say that the end of the Perek is Gavra, the beginning of the Perek is Chefza. Now he's saying exactly the opposite. What he's trying to say is that the Gavra is doing more for the Chefza. Und das is mudgish in the Raya. It's emphasized in the proof. Turn to page 12. The Rambam is nicht mistapen with the Werte, he doesn't just say that Heva brought a good carbon, but not a bringt euch. First of all, Vayisha Havai, the Ebrish turned, and number two, El Hevel V'Amanchasei. See, the Ebrish to Hevel and to his carbon. While the Mitzvah is Madgish, he wishes to underscore, at the Avos HaKarbon, and Ayafa, Meshubach B'Yesef. This giving a carbon and Ayafa is nidblois an inyan b'shayches lamaisa hagavra. It's not just something which is improving the person more. Says negei ech the chefta da carbon has to do with the carbon itself, which it says the elman chas. I'm going to keep going, okay? It's going to take too long. We deserve to study Perek Dalet a little more. Because he starts off saying that Chefze and Gavre, and then in this Toichet Dib, he turns it around from Chefze and Gavre to Gavre and Chefze. It's not a contradiction. But you have to understand how he uses the word Chefze and Gavre in the beginning and how he uses the word Gavre and Chefze in the end. Let's read Hey. Hey is the key os in this Perek, in this Sikha. The most important Perek in the Sikha is Perek Sif Hey. And Vav Mem. The Asbara Bazeh, the answer is listen. The Chiluk Tzavashin Kiyam HaMitzvahs Unin and HaKarbanos. We will now establish a difference between all mitzvahs and specifically Karbanos. Biyachas LaHaChefze, as both of those are talking about the Chefze. We're not talking about Gavra now. We're talking about when I do a mitzvah with tefillin or mezuzah or sefer Torah or lulav or shofar or beis hakneses. That's chefze, yeah? A korban is also chefze. But there's a difference between the bringing of an item to kedusha in most mitzvahs and bringing an item to kedusha by karbanos. And that difference is going to play out in these two words, the word mifchar and yofer. Kiyum ha-mitzvahs, when a person does a mitzvah, is ikrei ma'aseh shel hagavra. When you're doing a mitzvah, it's all about the person. Even when it's a deiraisa, and by deiraisa we say that deiraisa is about the chefze, but the chefze is about the person using the chefze. The gavra is mekayim tzivei Hashem shalav. The person is meeting an obligation which the Eibishter gave him. Not, it is only that the kiyam verdurach verdurach the chefze. This person cannot do this mitzvah without this thing. As an eferan kamed dargis. In the Pa'ula, and when the person uses this thing to do the mitzvah, the thing achieves a certain holiness. For example, Tashmisha mitzvah or Tashmisha kedusha. Says the Rebbe, das ist aber nicht der Mechuven von Ma'aseh ha'adam. The intent of the person is not to make this thing holy. The end of the person is to fulfill the mitzvah. When he fulfills the mitzvah, this becomes holy, but the person is thinking about the mitzvah. Zayin inyan is the kiyam mitzvah shalai. When a person does a mitzvah using tefillin, or mezuzah, or shofar, or sukkah, or lulav, or esrog, of course there's an item involved, and without that item he can't do the mitzvah, but he's thinking about his kiyum. When you do the mitzvah, the thing achieves a certain kedusha, but from your angle, that thing serves you. Bekarbones aber. Karbones is different. Look at footnote 34. You see it? You see, I told it to you earlier. This is also footnote
Only if you give it
27.
away.
Huh?
Only if you give it away.
That perhaps by Sefer Torah, it also has this eochos property like a carbon. Is there geder a mitzvah, the criteria of the mitzvah, the dish carbon gufa? You're taking an animal, and the holiness is not your fulfilling a mitzvah, but that you're giving the Eibush to the animal, making it holy. Let's say in other words, das was that is makdish und gid die Sach avek lavai. It makes it holy and gives it away. Says thereby da zayin kiyum a mitzvah. Of course, when a person fulfills a mitzvah, does a mitzvah, brings a carbon, he's makayim a mitzvah because of the din of nedarim. Right? Says the right is damit makayim dem neder. Was of sich genommen to bring them carbon ukiyetze bezef. That's another. It's not a carbon which is mechuyev. It's a carbon of neder. So when he brings that carbon, he's fulfilling the mitzvah of nedarim. Oh, but as Mekayim mitzvah say, what is the nature of the fulfillment of this mitzvah? Zu bringen den bestimmten carbon was is mechuyev. His obligation is to bring this carbon. Da is aber that ich need them kiyum a mitzvah shel agavre. Here, it's not that I have to meet an obligation, although I am meeting an obligation. Nor be ich they pull in them chefze in carbonis, contrast to all of the mitzvahs. The key is not that I'm doing the mitzvah. The Eibush ends up with my animal. Their markers that are carbon la Hashem, sacrificing the carbon to the Eibishter, avege the behavior v'chulu la'havai, you give it away. Was the seder bazeh is the order is free as the mensch makdish the behem. First you make it holy, but making it holy still belongs to you, right? The noch bringt zi lebeis hamikdash. Then you bring it to the beis hamikdash, which is called bias hamikdash. Biz mizi makir b'shlich as ba'al carbon al gabi hamizbeach. And the word mizbeach is key. Because the Mizbeach represents, it's not about me, it's about God. The next paragraph is so simple, so glatt. Listen. Alla mitzvahs, every mitzvah. Afilu la'acharei, this is what you want to show your students, if you can have a share this week. This paragraph. Afilu la'acharei with the chayfetz. Mit welchem is mekayim di mitzvah. Ver tashmishe mitzvah v'kayeta. When you do a mitzvah, and you take a piece of leather, and you make it into tefillin, and the mitzvah becomes holy, and it remains holy after you do the mitzvah. It belongs to you. The esek is beautiful, it's a mitzvah, but it's my esek. Die Sach, was Yid geht weg la Hashem, und der Eibishter nimmt das von ihm. Something which by definition you give away to the Eibishter, and the Eibishter takes it from you. That's another geder and chefze. Is only by Kabbanas. Doesn't exist any place in Yiddishkeit except Kabbanas. Because most mitzvahs, even though mitzvahs have a chefze aspect in addition to the gavra aspect, but the chefze aspect is mishachas to the gavra. So you could use the words chefze and gavra any way you want. In Halacha Aleph, we talk about chaylev, you could say that that's chefze, right? But it's chefze for gavra. In Halacha Ches, Tes, and Yud, or less Halachas Rambam, you could say that that's about gavra, but because it's about the gavra who wants to be what mezakes atzmei, to give a carbon. What's my schus? That I'm not keeping it. My schus is that it's Eibishter's. So the confusion about gavra chefze in Perek Daled is, if you think it through, it's not a kasha. But the point is that most mitzvahs, besides for karbonis, even the chefze is mine. By karbonis, the whole idea is that it's the Eibishter's. It's a different category of giving it away. It's a different category because it's just a mitzvah. What says the Rebbe, does it the chiluk? That's a different sufficient than did from hidden mitzvah. With the Gemara land of Posting Zakeli Van Veyu, which is the examples that he brought on the bottom of page 19, bottom of page 10. Sukkah no, lulav no, shefer no, tzitzis no. Because the sukkah is yours. The tzitzis are yours. So it's taka beautiful, but it's beautiful that adds to your shleimus. And that's the type hidur mitzvah. Hidur mitzvah is not yipui mitzvah. Hidur mitzvah is part of menamuvcha. I got to do a mitzvah, I'm going to do it better. And I'm going to do it better, so I'm going to be more complete in my kiyum mitzvah. Although the item, the chafta, the part of the mitzvah, and if I do it with a better chafta, it's a better mitzvah, but it all serves me. The din hidur mitzvah, the idea of beautifying a mitzvah, Wie the mitzvah guf, like the mitzvah itself, is nit azay to lead them chafts. Making a mitzvah beautiful is not so much for the thing you're making beautiful. Nor to live kiyim a mitzvah shal agavra. I need a beautiful mitzvah. You become beautiful in front of the Eibishter. We do a mitzvah. As the mitzvah that other Machon is vanveyu. I make the mitzvah beautiful. When I make the mitzvah beautiful, it's advantageous for me. The classic Gemara, which speaks of the mitzvah, and the Ram does not bring a single one of those examples except Beis Knesset. Why? Because those in Yonim are
yours.
It's taka, the item is holy, but it's mashla me. Midem was the Maisa. Through this fact that the action, the mitzvah is the mitzvah is more beautiful, is the kiyam a mitzvah shalagavra, the person fulfilling the mitzvah is no lafanav neibish, you're more beautiful than the neibish. Says that by karbonis are different. Second paragraph, page 13.
What's the shot the unveiled? Is that Kaylee?
To make it beautiful.
What?
To make it beautiful.
Make it beautiful for
Yeah.
yourself.
I will beautify him.
I will beautify you.
Yeah.
I will beautify.
Yeah.
But the unveiled doesn't say I will beautify.
The thing is, I will make it beautiful.
Where does the I come in?
The word unveil means I. I will make it beautiful.
Unveil means I will make
Yeah,
it
of course. It's a verb.
you.
By karbonis aber, when it comes to karbonis, is does bring in carbon and ayofa meshubach b'yezu. When you bring carbon from the most beautiful, and the choicest. Need blois to leave this not the fun of us, not to give me more schus that I have a nicer esrig from them gavir if I care, to the contrary. Das is a cheluk uprat from them gather that carbon. It's a detail. It's a part and a detail in the criteria of carbon. La Hashem, which is being brought to the Eibishter. And the carbon La Hashem, the sacrifice to the Eibishter, but bestate in their gedusha v'akrava lahavaya, which consists of the making it holy and giving it to the Eibishter. Parenthesis avegeben, you're giving it away La Hashem. In Beshleimus, but the Yais is more beautiful. So in Kabbanah's Gufa, right? Mitzvah min hamufcher by Karbonis is also for me. I'm bringing a better animal because I want to have a shleimus in my chefza. This new halacha, we don't get the kapara.
No, chet. Someone did a chet that brings it.
I brought up the word kapara. It's not nesiche. Kapara is coming later. Kapara is coming later. Kapara is coming later. When you hear that I'm with Machadish, that in addition to a carbon being min hamufcher, which is mashlim me as the one bringing this chefza, there's a higher madei in chefza that is for the sake of the Eibishter. Now, the part that makes it weird is hareitza lezakes esatzmei. I'm doing it for my schus, and lezakes esatzmei is to give it to the Eibishter. So the lezakes esatzmei doesn't mean I'm doing it for me. Lezakes esatzmei, I'm giving myself a schus in giving it away. So the language is deceptive, but how the Rebbe is understanding it. Ich will sich geben a schus. I want to give myself a schus. What's a schus? More sacrifice. I'm giving it away to the Eibishter. Now here comes the word. Und das ist der Tam, Siv Zayin. This is the reason. So as the Rambam breaks them din erst, in Hilchas Isurim Mizbeach. The Rambam doesn't bring halacha to Isurim Mizbeach. Weil der Inyan is neged together for Mizbeach. This is not even a din in Beis HaMikdash. It's a din in Mizbeach. Noch mehr is neged to Hilchas, parenthesis Isurim Mizbeach. The Rebbe wants you to take out from this Sikha that it should really be called Hilchas Mizbeach. It's called Isurim Mizbeach because it speaks about a lot of negatives. But it's Hilchas Mizbeach. What's Hilchas Mizbeach? The aspect of the Beis HaMikdash is not about how beautiful the house is. We're going to come over there and do whatever we do. It's about what we sacrifice to the Eibishter. That's Hilchas Isurim Mizbeach. All of it is about giving away to the Eibishter. And the end of it is the ultimate giving away to the Eibishter. And you'll see a few times this Isurah in parentheses. Noch mehr afilu to Hilchas Ma'aseh HaKarbonos, more than Halachas Ma'aseh, which is going to be asked later. The Iker Inyan for a carbon, the most important thing in a carbon is carbon la'avaya, that you're giving to Hashem. Although it begins when you make it holy. And when you make it holy, it's still yours. If you make it holy, it's still yours. That's still part of Kol Chelav la'avaya. It's not part, Mivchan Nedrechem, it's not part of Maniyaf Hashem Benachasav. Is about the Iker Ugmar HaKarban. When is the carbon in its prime? and complete. V'hakravase al gabi ha-mizbeach, when you put it on the mizbeach. And then, b'shas evet lachmish ha-mizbeach, when it becomes the food of the mizbeach. So achilas mizbeach is the food for the mizbeach. V'eter achelik v'shuchah becomes a part of the Eibishter's table. And this chefze is not yours. It's not yours. It's the Eibishter's. What is your part in it? What is your ownership? You have a schus. You have a schus that you're able to give something to the Eibishter. And that's it. Und der Rebbe, you know, I want to tell you something. There's a Rashi Sikh. In Chelik Lamed Beis, I guess it is. Where the Rebbe is studying Pshute Shel Mikra on our Parsha, on Nachas Ruach Lafanish Amati V'Nasar Etzeni. That by Karbonos it says, Re'ech Nechech L'Hashem, that Hashem gets a Nachas Ruach when we bring a Karban. And the Rebbe asks the question, what about Tefillin? What about Shabbos? Not Nachas Ruach Lafanish V'Nasar Etzeni, just by Karbonos. So the Rebbe answers in that Sikha, Pshute Shel Mikra, because when you bring a Karban, you get nothing back. You gave it away and you have nothing. Every other mitzvah, you give it away, you get something back. You don't say Re'ech Nechech Lavaya by Chatas and Osham. You say it by Eila. You don't say it by a Korban Chatas. You say it by a Korban Eila and by a Korban Shlomim. So this Rambam is very similar to that Rashi, if you think about it. That there's a gather in mitzvahs, that my part in the mitzvah is that I'm giving to the Eibishter and I get nothing from it. That's my schus. My schus that I'm not getting anything, that's my schus. And how does it show itself that I'm not enough, that I have a gedet in mitzvah and amuvcha? Has to be min hayafa and amshubach b'yesef. When the river, which is why, is the din from yarech and yodei. V'yavir kabon min hayafa amshubach b'yesef. You open your hand and you bring the carbon for the best. Was bringt is the shleimus from the sinah la Hashem carbon. It's only by a carbon that this point is brought out. Is negay nitazeh to the etzim getting from a kedusha with the ma'aser karbonis. It's not really a din in the halachas of karbonis. Was in Denver a nichel alle prat ma'aser karbonis. Und nit pleis den prat for hakrava gabe mizbeach nor hilches isur mizbeach. It's not negay to the animal. It's not negay to the kedusha. It's negay to the mizbeach. You see the words? Hilchas parenthesis isurei mizbeach, which is gemar v'shleimus. This is a carbon when you put it on the mizbeach. This gather of min hayofe is in the preparation stages. You don't have it. Why? Because in the preparation stations you're still a shutav. You don't have it till it goes on the mizbeach, and then you have nothing. And only when you have nothing do you have the schus. And so the Rebbe is medayik hilchas isurei mizbeach. So the Rebbe is telling us a chiddush on how to read the name of the halacha in Rambam. Hilchas Yisurim Mizbeach does not mean Yisurim Mizbeach, it means Hilchas Mizbeach. And what's the Gedem Mizbeach? When it goes up on the altars, it's not yours at all. And that's your schus, that it's not yours at all. And no halacha speaks this better than the last halacha in the whole 7 parag. The mitzvah farenfet, the Rebbe continues. The Rambam does not bring the examples of the Gemara from a lulav and from a shefer and from tzitzis. Huh? What was the 4th example?
Sukkah, lulav. Oh no, it was arrows.
Sukkah, lulav, shefer, tzitzis, and sefer teira. He gives different examples. But on the base tefillah v'chulu, as by zay is the zelber din from Yom Novem, because these examples are similar to karbonas. Because this is not a din mitzvah. Hidden mitzvah is still about you. I'm mahadeh b'mitzvahs. Hidden the zach wasn't to the mitzvah. It's about for the sake of God. My only schus is that I could give it to Him. That's my schus. Yeah, the zach was like to carbon. There's a category of mitzvahs that are comparable to a mitzvah carbon once it's on the mizbeach. Once it's no longer mine. If I still have a hand in it, like when I makdish the animal and still in my shus, it's not that. That's not mizbeach. That's carbon. Mizbeach. And then was megitas l'shema elatei because they give it to the good God. Bona based tefillah, based knesses, for the Eibishter. When you build a shul for the Eibishter, it's no longer yours. It's the Eibishter. Hiktish dava, you make something holy. Is techne, you get to the l'shema el. And al derech the mittel it's found. The same is also true about taking care of poor people. Hechil roiv kisa orom. The Rogatchover is Mavayet. The Rogatchover explains, as in tzedakah, and Franz Fege, there are the 2 types of tzedakah. One is the Havageder mitzvah, and the other is tzedakah begeder kapara. That's the guy that's stuck, which is like a carbon. Und das ist der Hadgoshe in Rambam. And the Rambam says that you're feeding a poor person, a hungry person, or you're clothing a person who has no clothes. It's talking about kapara. Kapara means something that I give away to Eibishter completely, and only because I gave away Eibishter completely, and the Eibishter took it, do I have a kapara. And he brings the pasuk, Preis l'rav lachmecha v'aniyim mirudin tavi bayis kitir aram b'gisisei, where the Navi read wegen die Peulas was a yid avtan b'yei matainis. It's stuck on a fast, it's stuck on a time, it's about me. I have to have a kapara. And the only way I have a kapara is I give it away and I have nothing from it. And the Rebbe brings the Ramban. Where's the Ramban? Second column, second paragraph from the end.
Where are you? Where you go? You're out?
Page 14, second column, the Ramban.
Oh,
Okay, one second. Shmuel, I'm not finished. The Sikha I will come soon. I didn't forget.
Okay, no problem.
The Ramban is mevar the tam was kapara zayin kapara zayin v'chaper. Why is a carbon v'chaper? Sheyachshav the person should think b'seisi kol eila when he's doing all of these things. Yichot lelekov begufi benafshi. He's sinned to the Eibish's body and soul. V'roy lo yishafich dam v'yisarech gufe. His body, his blood should be spilled. His body should be burned. If not for the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shalokach mimenu tmura. Instead of him, there's dam karban and there's nefesh nachas nefesh. So when you're burning an animal, you're sprinkling his blood. It's your blood. This is the famous Ramban. It's brought when you get to kaparas also something like this, right? When we bow say it's moving on the yichef yitzrei azaz nit azayt yisach in the minyan kaparas. The lashon harambam about Yaakov Yitzrei bending yitzrei. Remember that lashon I showed it to you before. Yaakov Yitzrei. When you're bending yitzrei, that's your eskafia. You're eskafia. It's sacrificing yourself. Sacrificing yourself. That's a dinim mizbeach. Isn't it a zayt gezach? Second line from the Ram. Das is the ganze get that a carbon Yaakov Yitzrei. Yaakov Yitzrei means you're giving God your yitzrei. Was in dem by stay dem ritzu and kapor. Okay, then the Rebbe speaks about menachos because menachos is the carbon of poor people. And I'm going to stop here. I mean, we could learn the rest of the sikha, but this is a wow.
How is kapara chefza?
It's the whole thing about the choice what you're
Taking your nefesh.
Because you don't get your kapara until you give it away totally. Why do you fast? You don't get you need the kapara, but the kapara only happens when it goes on the mizbeach. Until it goes on the mizbeach, you don't have a kapara. And the meaning of going on the mizbeach is Yaakov, I gave away a piece of meat to Eibishter. After that brings in Tanya, Perek Beis and Perek Gimel in Yeres HaTshuva, that fasting is literally giving your flesh and blood to the Eibishter. And you don't have the kapara until you actually gave away your blood and flesh. The pile, mizbeach, not Knisa LeBeis HaMikdash, not Ma'aseh HaKarbanos, mizbeach.
So we say
This diak of mizbeach is wow.
So I think when we say Dila is Baruch of time is to Skafia, so Skafia is mamish making the Chefze, the Eibishter, it's the biggest thing.
Correct. You're making yourself the Eibishter. You're bending yourself. You're making yourself the Eibishter. When you bending yourself, you're not bending yourself because you want something back. You're bending yourself that bendage you want the Eibishter's mizbeach. And when he takes it from you, you have kapara. When he takes it from you, it's not yours anymore.